Welcome to Americans, the show where going south means things are getting better. I'm your host, Roberto Lobato. We're here in Los Angeles at the corner of Broadway and Olympic, the birthplace of the modern immigrant rights movement in the United States. It's here where in 1994, tens of thousands of us began the long march that led to the mega marches of millions in 2006, a long march that continues to this day. We were marching against Proposition 187, a ballot initiative introduced by then Governor Pete Wilson, who wanted to deny basic services and education to the children of the undocumented. At the time, this was unheard of. And today, things like Proposition 187 are the norm in cities and in states across the entire United States. As California and the country mark the 20th anniversary of Proposition 187, immigrants and Latinos are facing a complex and often confusing situation.
A campaign to remember the xenophobic sentiments that spurned Proposition 187, erase its stains from our books, and lead the country forward to a brighter day where immigrants are treated with dignity and given a real opportunity to thrive.
On the one hand,
20 years ago,
Latino power has grown to the point where it is forcing California Democrats like Kevin De Leon to push for the possible abolition of Proposition 187. Yet, on the other hand, Democrat Barack Obama has deported more than 2 million people, and is preparing to deny Central American child refugees the rights granted to them by, ironically, George W. Bush. Such a situation has different generations of immigrant and Latino families thinking about where we've been and where we're going. We're on our way to visit the Guevara family. They migrated to Los Angeles because of the war in El Salvador, and they arrived just in time for the beginning of the immigration wars in the United States, Proposition 187. The story of Roxana, Claudia, Jennifer, and Iskai is the story of how the immigration wars have shaped generations of Americans. Hola Roxana, ¿qué tal? ¿Qué tal?
¿Qué tal?
Gracias, gracias. Muchísimas gracias. As you know, we're here to talk about 20 years after Proposition 187. Where are we? Where have we been? Where are we going? So I want to start off with you, Roxana. So you came in 1990, and 4 years later, actually 3 years later, Governor Pete Wilson of California announces that he's going to launch Proposition 187, effectively denying social services and education and other services to undocumented immigrants and their children.
Well, I thought that was unfair. We are not here to steal the money of the American people. We are here to make a living. We are here to work hard. We are here to survive. Mm-hmm. I wanted to see a better future. Mm-hmm. And it was really hard. We didn't have the opportunities, and the only thing that I could find at that time was an opportunity to fight for a better future here. Mm-hmm. So to me it was a natural behavior on my part, you know. Mm-hmm. My family was affected by all of the things that were happening at that time. My family had to be part of the struggle too.
And you remember some of the slogans you were telling me that earlier? That you remember some of the slogans at that time? What were they?
Arriba, abajo, Pete Wilson al carajo. And there's also Sacaremos ese güey de la barranca, but which was translated to Sacaremos ese güey de Sacramento, right? We had to negotiate.
What I love about the Guevara story is the way you can see the perennial passing of the political torch from one generation to the next. How, without the controversy and the first big marches around Proposition 187, we would never have seen the historic mega marches of 2006. Throughout the country, 2006 was when the children of Proposition 187 saw and seized their chance to make history. And Jenny, do you think that from 1994 to 2006, there's kind of like a ripple effect in our community, which the ripple starts off one place and then it starts growing and growing and growing.
Seeing it at the home front, you know, students at my high school joining in on those protests, even middle school, it was very eye-opening, you know, especially as I became an adolescent, seeing that this was very real, you know. This wasn't just a surge of immigration or of, you know, my own cousins came here in the early 2000s. You know, my school peers, you know, transitioning into, you know, predominantly, you know, English-speaking high school. You know, this, yeah, again, it wasn't a one-time thing, and it's still, you know, with the issue with the Central American kids now, this didn't just happen out of anywhere. This has been happening and happening and happening. So, neoliberal.
Like immigrants and Latinos throughout the country, Roxana, Claudia, and Jennifer are profoundly impacted by Obama's deportation of 2 million people. Most of these people are Latinos with no criminal record. But equally disconcerting to them is the way in which the United States as a whole is treating Central American child refugees. Some of these refugees resemble Claudia's daughter, Ishkai. So as part of the pro-migrant movement, where are we 20 years later? Are we better? Are we worse off? Or is it kind of a mix? How do any of you see it?
There's not really a big difference between Democrats and Republicans, and we need to really find another way to view these policies, because there's a lot of dehumanization going on. It's being portrayed more as of an us versus them, when there's no responsibility taken on behalf of the U.S. people. In terms of an immigrants' rights movement, I think it's growing. Social media is definitely, I think, bringing to light a lot of real stories, and I think those real stories are what we need to humanize this movement, to humanize us as people, to make mainstream America realize that there's a cause for everything, and how they are responsible for our stories too.
And then you later took what you learned about protesting and you actually... Regardless of how much we've advanced or how much we've fallen behind, the way in which baby Ishkai and the coming generation of Latinos face the immigration politics of the future will largely depend on overcoming and learning the lessons of Proposition 187. For Americans, I'm Roberto Lovato.